Though it's always been fairly popular in the video game scene, speedrunning has gotten a huge boost in popularity over the last couple years. People really love trying to push a game to its limits and exploit anything that they can to shave off a couple seconds from world record. There are even games that are made with speedrunning in mind, like Celeste, which features a built-in speedrun timer and has the developers actively adding in techniques that the speedrunners use. This made me think of one of the slowest games that you can play, Animal Crossing. I mean, this seems like the opposite of a speedrunning game. There's no end goal, you can't do anything with movement, time travels in real time. It just seems like everything is against this one being able to be speedrun. I mean, how are you supposed to go fast in a game where you can barely even get anything done playing regularly for an hour? Well, as it turns out, you can do quite a lot. There's a small but dedicated community of people pushing these games to their limits and even to this day are improving on world records. From the original GameCube game to New Horizons and even the spin-offs, runners have spent countless hours finding glitches, new routes, and any exploit they can to live in an animal town the quickest. Today I want to discuss the way that Animal Crossing is speedrun, the techniques, the categories, because trust me, this is a lot more interesting than you would think. But before we get into that, I have to talk to you guys about today's sponsor, Factor. Factor is your place to go when you want fresh, ready-made meals delivered straight to your door. Factor saves you time because you don't have to do any more meal prepping, you can skip out on dishes, and it's healthier than fast food. But I hear you now, I'm a picky eater, what if I don't like what they send me? Well, if you would have waited 2 seconds, I would have explained that Factor's menus are updated weekly and include 27 plus meals and 34 plus add-on options. So if you're interested in trying out Factor, use my link or go to go.factor75.com and use my code for 50% off your first box. And thank you Factor for sponsoring this video. Now, let's get back into the speedruns. Now, one thing you may be thinking to yourself is, how do you even come up with the category for Animal Crossing? This game has no end goal, so what are you supposed to be working towards in a speedrun? Of course, there are plenty not as serious categories like when people try to speedrun Happy Home Paradise, but as fun as those are, I don't think anyone other than Koromora wants to spend over 100 hours trying to get every villager photo. Runners have come together to create a core set of categories that run throughout the series. These are typically things like milestones that you can do in the game. Almost all the games in the series are set up pretty much the same, so most of the categories carry over other than like 1 or 2 other ones sprinkled throughout. But don't think that this makes things boring, because no 2 games run a category quite the same way. While you still have the same goal throughout, the techniques and routes make each game unique in its own way. In true Animal Crossing fashion, the categories with the most runs are the debt speedruns. Whether it's first debt or all debts, your main goal is to pay back Tom Nook as quickly as possible. These runs are fairly accessible since they typically don't take too long to perform and most of them don't require any crazy tricks or techniques. I mean, even the slowest run of all debts in Animal Crossing GameCube is like a little bit under 2 hours, so you're not really going to be wasting that much time as opposed to another category like all golden tools or something like that. Most of the debt runs play out pretty similarly. For example, in New Leaf, the first debt speedrun is get to town, plant a tree, buy a shovel, hit a money rock, pay off the debt. So since Animal Crossing is so limited, you can't really do anything like movement tricks to go faster, so what makes or breaks a run? Well, that's a little something called RNG. Random number generators, or essentially just luck, are things that are featured really prominently in Animal Crossing speedruns in almost all of the categories, and even though they're not going to decide the outcome of your run, it'll definitely make things easier or harder for you, depending on how lucky you get. Going back to the New Leaf example, there are a couple factors that are pretty much solely dependent on luck, and if you get unlucky, you just kinda have to reset. Let's take a look at the world record and see how luck played into this. First is the map. The placement of your town hall is something that can either save you a ton of time or lose you even more depending on where the game decides to put it. Ideally, you want a town hall very close to the top of the map so that you can run straight there after arriving to town, as well as after placing your tent. You can see in the world record, town hall is pretty much right next to the entrance to the shopping area, which makes this a perfect placement to go fast since that's pretty much the only area that you need to go. Compare this to something like having the town hall across from a river. You can play as perfectly as you can, but if you have to waste time crossing that bridge, then you're never going to get that back. Luckily, you see your map pretty quickly when you start up a run, so you don't have to waste a ton of time if you're looking for a certain map. Unfortunately, you could still get well into a run and lose it all to the money rock. The money rock is a staple in Animal Crossing. One of the rocks in your town contains enough money to pay off that first debt, and it's the quickest way to pay it off. The only issue is that you have no idea which rock actually has that money. Checking back in the world record, we can see that they have a rock spawned right next to Town Hall, and it ended up being the money rock. It might seem like this category is just all luck, but the world record holder actually did a lot of really quick thinking that made for a lot of time saves. For example, you would usually have to dig 2 holes behind you when you hit the money rock so that your character doesn't bounce backwards, but this runner placed their house down in a spot so they could skip digging the holes and instead save a couple seconds. Luck plays a pretty big part in these categories, but other games have things like external factors that can affect your runs. For example, did you know that you can speedrun Pocket Camp? Did you forget that Pocket Camp existed? I guess if you don't know, Pocket Camp is a spin-off of the series that's on smartphones and is somehow even slower than the actual games because of the whole phone games making you wait or you can pay for it model. Since there isn't too reliable of a way to time travel in this game, the categories are pretty limited. The 3 current categories are just things you can do in one day without having to pay for in-app purchases. Taking a look at the first loan category of this game, there are more runs than I expected. Your goal for this category is to basically make it through the tutorial, then go fishing using the free in-game currency you get for downloading the game. There's a slight chance you'll be able to catch the fish that are worth enough to pay off that first loan, but these odds are not really in your favor. But what's something even more run-killing than RNG? Internet. Since Pocket Camp is a mobile phone game, it has to download a lot of the assets while you're playing, and this download time counts towards the speedrun. I actually attempted this category myself just because I wanted to see if I could do it, and my download took about 5 minutes as compared to the world record's 50 seconds, so don't expect to see my name too high up on there anytime soon. The second place runner actually says that the download speed is the only thing that's different in their run versus the world record. It does feel like a pretty lame way to lose out on a world record run, but I suppose it's still possible to improve since for a while people weren't actually doing the fishing method and instead were selling furniture to pay the loan. So who knows, maybe there are still improvements to be made that would make it so that internet is much less of a factor. Honestly, everybody has a phone and Pocket Camp is free, so if you're interested in speedrunning it, you might as well try it. You may end up getting lucky and get a world record. Okay, I've got 2 more luck-based categories that I want to go over. This first one is what a lot of runners consider to be the most luck-dependent, which is the City Folk Golden Axe run. I'll discuss the Golden Tool runs in a bit, but mostly Golden Tools are unlocked after reaching a certain milestone. So for example, catching all the fish to get the Golden Rod, which makes sense because catching fish would get you the best rod. So maybe getting the Golden Axe is like you chop down a certain number of trees or something like that. No. The way you get this is by building a fountain in your town, then throwing your axe into the fountain, and then having to get lucky by having Serena give you the golden axe. This is something pretty difficult to get even in a casual playthrough, let alone trying to get the fastest time. The odds of this are 1 in 64 if you follow a certain dialogue branch, and there's pretty much no way to get the odds in your favor. You kind of just have to throw the axe and pray. If you want even a shot at getting a world record, you have to get that axe throw on your first try because almost all of the top runs have that axe throw being the first try, as well as having everything optimized. Or maybe you can convert to the Church of Serena and she can give you a little bit more luck, who knows. Now my favorite of all of these categories in the series has to be Snowman Bingo. I feel like this category strikes a pretty nice balance between having some technical skills and also having luck involved, and also it's just kind of funny to play bingo with a snowman. Your goal, as the name suggests, is to get bingo by building a perfect snowman, then getting random numbers from it to fill out your bingo card. You have to know how to consistently build perfect snowmen, as well as knowing the best places to put those snowmen as you're time traveling each day. There are plenty of things you could do to get good at certain parts, but you could also probably ignore most of that and still do decent on the leaderboard because you got lucky on the bingo card. Sure, you could figure out the best way to get snowballs, move them to the most optimal area, and figure out a direct route. Or you could just get lucky and get 5 of them in a row. Because of that, I think it leaves a pretty nice balance between having casual skills that you can learn but still attain pretty easily and just luck that may or may not help you. But what if you want a category that doesn't heavily involve luck? Probably find a new game, but if you're persistent, you may want to look into the Golden Tools categories. Like I mentioned before, Golden Tools are acquired after completing certain milestones, so there's a lot more skill involved in these runs than most of the other categories. The most popular of these are the Golden Net and Golden Rod categories, which see you catching every kind of bug or fish respectively. Luck still does play a factor in this, of course, but there is a lot more technique that goes into it, whether it's catching a bug first try or knowing what kind of fish you need to catch at any certain time. Taking a look at the route for City Folk, you can see just how in-depth the planning really goes. Things start by making you set the date to Bunny Day because it allows you to get items you can sell so that you can upgrade nooks, as well as having a guaranteed way to get a shovel and a net. Of course, the maps are important, but you can play pretty much any map that you get and still be fine as long as you're playing well. This category really is about adapting to whatever's happening. Time management is important because if you spend too long looking for a certain bug, then you're going to run out of time and the clock's going to switch. Or for example, if you don't do a setup right, you're going to lose time later on. Going back to that city folk example, if you don't buy or sell enough from nooks, it never upgrades. Of course, this means that you can't buy an axe, and those axes are used to cut down trees and control where tree bugs spawn. It's honestly kind of fun reading through these routes because you can see where things at the beginning are affecting things at the end, and it's almost like a puzzle to figure out the perfect way to move. Of course, there is still some luck involved with these categories. The net category has things like fleas, which appear randomly, and bug spawns in general just aren't really the same every time. Even still, most of these aren't big enough to ruin a run, and perfecting the route and spatial awareness are still the main factors. Goldenrod is a bit more tough because you don't know what you're going to catch when the fish is in the water because all it is a shadow. In fact, the guide for the Goldenrod category for Animal Crossing GameCube basically just tells you where to throw the bobber and the odds of catching any certain fish. There's still some interesting tricks here, like when you go to catch a jellyfish, you set the date and time to August 31st at 11:59, so after you catch the jellyfish, the month changes. This allows new fish to spawn, and you don't have to waste part of the run by time traveling. These tool runs are a good choice if you want to be a bit more involved in the play, or if you're watching, it gives you a little bit more substance as opposed to just watching a ton of resets. So those are most of the main categories in the series. Of course there are others, but a lot of the other ones take much more time to complete, so I guess if you have a spare 24 hours, you can try to take world record for all golden tools in New Horizons. You may have noticed that I haven't brought up New Horizons until this point, and that's because I was saving it for this next section where we talk about glitches and exploits. Sometimes just playing the game isn't fast enough, and runners have to look to glitches to end up saving time. When New Horizons dropped, it didn't have many of the game's usual staples like Brewster, but it did have a couple important glitches for speedrunning. We can take a look at the credits category to see all these things coming together. Your goal is to have your island reach 3 stars as quickly as possible, and to do this you need a lot of resources, which is where the first exploit comes in. In pre-1.2 versions of the game, you could abuse the autosave feature and send mail to another user on your island, which ends up duplicating whatever you sent. Basically, you have 3 different players live on your island, then have 2 of them play at the same time. You mail resources to one of the villagers and then put them in your pocket, then switch out who you're playing with before the game autosaves. This makes the game think that you have items in the mailbox still and in your pockets, and since it didn't autosave, it just leaves it in both spots. This exploit can be used to duplicate pretty much anything you can send in the mail, though credits runs just use them to duplicate resources needed to build items like the bridge and Nook's Cranny. After that, things stay pretty normal until you need to raise your island rating. Normally this is done by planting trees, having flowers, and having a variety of crafted items and things you bought scattered around the island. But of course this is way too slow, so instead you have 2 options. If you don't have New Horizons Joy-Cons, then the strategy is to display custom display mannequins everywhere on your island. For some reason these count towards your town score, and you can reach 3 stars simply by planting a couple flowers, then littering your island with these airplane shirts. Keep in mind that when this game came out, people were making these huge in-depth guides about planting flowers and the perfect place to put your fences, when really, all you had to do was turn your island into Macy's. Now though this strategy is fast, it is not the fastest way. If you do have a pair of New Horizons Joy-Cons, you get the New Horizons Switch item in the mail the first few days of playing, and this adds to your town's star rating really quickly. Through the use of a different duplication glitch using a cardboard box, you can make as many New Horizons Switches as you can hold and place them around the island, pretty similar to the mannequins, though you don't have to place nearly as many. And with that, you can do something that's normally supposed to take like a month in less than 2 hours. Duplication glitches actually aren't anything new to the series. In the GameCube game, there was a pretty similar glitch to the cardboard box one. Runners use this glitch mostly to duplicate fall medals, which can be sold at a really high price, so it's perfect for runs like All Debts or Completed Museum where you have to spend a ton of bells at Red Shop. The GameCube game also features a cheat code system, which is not technically a glitch, but it does help runners go quicker in runs. I just mentioned the Completed Museum run, and another interesting thing you can do is remove the background music in the game through a code, which apparently is a time save because it makes the game load a little bit faster. Honestly, whatever amount of time this saves cannot be worth just standing in this igloo with that clam chowder noise. We'll just take the time loss. It might not seem significant, but it really does show that Animal Crossing speedrunning is taken pretty seriously, and you have to do all that you can to get a world record. The final glitch is something very important to Wild World speedrunning, and that is the letterhead glitch. The letterhead glitch works kind of similar to the codes in the original game, but instead of entering codes to Tom Nook, instead you have to flood the header of a letter till your game starts writing directly into the memory of the game. This strategy is pretty hugely game-breaking to the point where runs have to be broken up by if you use the glitch or not. It's interesting to point out that even though this glitch is so powerful, it's still only about 10 minutes faster than doing it without using it. Obviously every second counts in a speedrun, but it is really cool to know that people have perfected this game so much that literally changing the game's memory is only a little bit faster than just playing fast. The idea of speedrunning a game like Animal Crossing seems more like a joke than an actual suggestion, but taking a look at the runs and seeing the dedication that players put in truly shows how unique this game is within the speedrunning community. The game is casual enough that I truly believe anybody could speedrun this game if they wanted to, but there are plenty of advanced techniques that make things interesting to keep watching. Pair that with a bit of luck that could make any run a potential world record, and I feel like Animal Crossing is a pretty underrated speedrunning game. Obviously, there's so much more info that I could have gone over, but I didn't want this video to get too long, so I'm going to stop it right there. I want to give a huge shout out to Drew and Lorf over on Twitch. They gave me some information and some insight into the different ones, a lot of stuff that I wouldn't know. This video truly would not be possible without their help. If you are interested in learning more about speedrunning, I would definitely suggest checking out their streams. I'm pretty sure that Drew has like almost every category in the world record of city folk, so definitely some good information out there. If you're interested in trying speedruns, I would definitely say give it a go. I mean, there's really not a ton of techniques you would need to learn, and there are even categories where you don't have to learn any techniques. I recently did a stream for New Horizons credits. That was a ton of fun just getting to try out different things that I saw and see how quick I could go. So I would definitely suggest trying that if you're interested. Once again, huge thank you to Factor. Check the link in the description if you want that. And I'll also link Drew and Lorf's channel down in the description below if you want to check them out. With that being said, keep speedrunning if you're speedrunning. Check it out if you haven't, and I will see you in the next one.